All right, hey everybody, good afternoon. We are going to be digging into part 4 of our composition exercise here. And then after you watch this video, there is going to be a YouTube video that has the composition process in there where we're going to be taking our rhythm that we worked on in parts 1 and 2 and turning it into the melodies that you've been discussing for the last week here. So if you did not watch the video of part number 3, please make sure that you do in fact watch that. It will be very beneficial. It will give you a lot of good ideas on what you're going to be doing. Please make sure you watch the YouTube video that is after this as well, okay? So let's go ahead and dig in here. First thing we've got to remember is our strategies for the different notes that we are going to be using within our composition. So we're starting off with our line note. Now remember, each of the 5 lines represents a letter that you can play on an instrument or sing using your voice. Starting at the bottom, we start with E, G, B, D, and F up there on the top line. Now, this can be a little bit hard to remember sometimes, so we use the strategy, every good boy does fine. So those right there, those 5 letters, E, G, B, D, and F, those are going to be the 5 lines that you use in order to put the pitches on those line notes. Now, please remember, this is just for our treble clef line notes. We are not worrying about bass clef or alto clef or tenor clef or any of those other things. It is just these 5 right here, okay? And what it says here, right there where the little laser pointer is, please make sure that the first letter of each word is the name of the pitch. Now, we are not going to say that this is every. That's just not how it works. Every is a moniker that helps us to remember what that is, a mnemonic device, to use an English term. So what that does is it helps us remember which letter goes along with those different spaces. So looking at our space strategy, we have 4 spaces between the lines, right there, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And each of those is starting off with F, A, C, and E, starting from the bottom. And once again, please remember that the bottom is where you need to start in order to make these strategies work. If you are starting at the top, you're going to have these all completely backwards. And realistically, if you start at the top here, you're only going to have that middle line be correct. Everything else will be incorrect. So please make absolutely certain that you are starting at the bottom of your staff. So anyway, we've got that F, A, C, and E. So remember, that's our 4-letter word, face. Please make note that it's not face right here on the first space. It is one single letter for each of those different spaces right there. Now, going outside the staff, we do have a couple of notes that we're using that are outside the staff. Please remember, we do have notes that are at the top of the staff here, but we're not going to worry about them at this moment. We are going to specifically worry about the pitches that are down at the bottom of the staff, meaning those lower notes. Please remember that as you go lower on the staff, those are low notes. So recall that there are pitches at the bottom of the staff, which are lower notes. Inside the house analogy, we think about that first floor, that ground level, which we don't call ground level, we call it the downstairs, which is why we have those stairs right there to remind ourselves that as we move down, this right here below the staff touching the bottom line is our low D. So remember, low D is what we're using to remind ourselves that it's at the bottom of the staff and that it is down here towards the bottom with the downstairs. Now you do have a high D up here, but that's way far away, so we're going to just stick with this guy right down here for the time being. Going to a ledger line below the staff, remember that a ledger line is a line that goes outside of the staff, and it allows us to extend that staff either up or down. So with this one, we are going below the staff here, so we are extending that staff down below the bottom line. So what the ledger line does is it adds an extra line in there just for that one specific note. Now this will come in handy if you are composing using those different letters right there at the bottom of the staff, okay? You only need to have one ledger line per note. Now if you have like a pair of 1/8 notes, for example, you still get one ledger line per note. There will be a very small slight space in between the two of them. But that's not right now. The strategy that we use is the crawl space. It's kind of underneath the house. It's not quite all the way at the very, very, very bottom, but it is up just a little bit from there. So like I said, that crawl space. Some of you may have a crawl space in your homes. Me personally, I don't. I have a full basement. But the very first house that my parents and I lived in long ago did have a crawl space in it. So the pitch that's located on the crawl, or on that ledger line down there, that crawl space, is middle C. Now, one great way to remember that this is middle C is by remembering that that adjective middle is the only middle that we have on our staff. There is no middle B or middle A or middle G or any of that sort of thing. Middle only goes with the C that is below the staff. Okay? So hopefully that helps out a little bit. Now that we kind of remember all those different notes, let's take a look at adding the pitches to our rhythm. Now this is going to look almost identical to what you worked on last time. However, it's meant to help you and remind you what we're doing before you watch the actual process that I'm working out with you in the second YouTube video here. So it says right here, because we're starting on middle C, which is one of the rules that you will see in just a moment here, the first choice has been made for you. It means that you're going to take the rhythm that you have right there, that rhythm, and you're going to You're going to turn it into a middle C right there. So you're going to simply use the exact same rhythm. Now you don't change your rhythm. You don't say, oh, well, I drew a half note here, I'm going to make this a pair of eighth notes. Please don't. No. Use this the easy way to help yourself figure out what it is that you are going to be doing. Okay? Now, after you place your middle C, you get a choice. You can go wherever it is that you feel like. You can leave large gaps here. I would caution you, though, be very kind of mindful about that. Big jumps can sometimes seem jarring. Now, if you go from a C up to like a D or an E up here, is that a large gap? Yes, absolutely it is. However, in small doses, it is okay to have those larger gaps. Okay? Now, what you want to avoid is leaping up and leaping down and leaping up and leaping down all over the place, so you have these really big gaps between all of your notes. We want to try to avoid that as much as we possibly can, because it can make your tune sound jarring. It will have this really kind of odd, awkward effect to it. Now, if that's something that you're going for, that's a choice that you can make. I would really prefer that you don't send those really, really big gaps all the time, because it will help you to kind of figure out what it is your composition is going to sound like, how it's all going to work, and see what it's going to come out sounding like if you keep those notes a little bit closer together. So now I've filled in the remainder of this last there. So it says, continue placing pitches on your rhythm until you reach your final note. Now, for this right here, I did not go to the very end of this. I only did the first, 5 measures right here. So normally I would go another 3 measures to finish out my composition, making sure to end on middle C there as well, which you'll see again in just a moment here. Now with your eighth notes right here. Now this this grouping of eighth notes rather is 4 altogether like that. Now that's something that Sibelius, the program that I use, does occasionally. So what you want to do is keep the pairs together like we discussed in the last video. So that E moving down to that pair of D's right there, that is staying on the same pitch. Now could you put all 4 of those on the exact same one? Absolutely, of course. But if you want to move your eighth notes, please make sure you keep the pair of them on the same pitch for right now. Okay, that's not a rule for always, but it's a rule that we're going to use for right now. All right, so we have this right here. I'm sorry, I guess I did put this, but we do have that last middle C to make that complete. You'll see that in just a moment here when I go over the rules. So, speaking of the rules, let me move my display out of the way here real quick, because apparently that wants to be there in the way. We'll just put me right there smack in the middle. Either way, I don't know if that's going to stay there the whole time. It doesn't matter. So, you've got right here, you're going to need a piece of paper and a pencil. Now, don't use the same piece of paper that you used last time. You are going to need a separate piece of paper, please and thank you. You're going to find your rhythm from last week's lesson, and you will use your rhythm to create your composition. Remember, you are not creating a new rhythm. I'm going to say that one last time. You are not creating a new rhythm. You are using the rhythm from last time to create a melody. So make sure that your your rhythm is 8 measures long, not 8 notes long or anything like that. If you are missing parts of your rhythm, please make sure that you go back and you really work on creating that rhythm the correct way. So using any of the following figures, you're going to create your own melody. You're using that every good boy does fine, face like face in the space, low D as in the downstairs, and middle C as crawl space. You are also, it doesn't list it right here, but you will see it in the next video, going to give it bar lines, a time signature, the treble clef. You're going to need a double bar line at the very end as well. So you're going to give your composition a school-appropriate title, please. If you want to use the same title as before, that is completely fine with me. Just make sure it's school-appropriate. And then you're going to add your name, not my name, your name, as the composer, because you're the one who composed this rhythm. You're the one who, or this melody. You're the one who composed this unique song. And then I would very much like it if you would hold it up and take a screenshot of that to send to me so I can see what you worked on. I saw a lot of you turning in your rhythms from last time, and that was excellent. I'm very happy to see that. I hope I did reply to all of you who sent that stuff in. So go back and just make sure that you are turning your melody into the same kind of rhythm and melody and everything that you want to have for your song. Okay, so that's it for this particular slideshow. You do have another YouTube video. It's, I think, 7 minutes long or something to that effect, of we're actually going to be looking at how you're going to be writing your music. There's some really good information in there, and I want you to make sure that you are really clear on that. If you need to pause this video right here, please feel free to do that so you have your rules available for you. And then we will get working on our compositions. Okay? Let's go ahead and look at the next video. Like I said, if you want to leave this open, you want to take a screenshot of it, I don't particularly care how you do it, as long as you know what your rules are. Okay? So let's head on over to the next YouTube video. Let's take a watch, take a listen, and see what we are going to be doing.